We are on the doorstep of the 2022 AFL season, and as always, it is season prediction time. We have tapped the minds of our experts from across the country to gauge expectations at this very early stage. See their predictions below. Overall consensus. Premiers: Western Bulldogs, Brisbane, Melbourne, Geelong, Port Adelaide, Sydney, Richmond. Wooden Spoon: Adelaide, Hawthorn, Gold Coast, North Melbourne, Collingwood, West Coast. Brownlow: Marcus Bontempelli, Clayton Oliver, Christian Petracca, Josh Kelly, Jack Steele, Patrick Cripps, Tim Taranto, Dustin Martin, Touk Miller. Coleman: Jeremy Cameron, Harry McKay, Aaron Norton, Max King, Tom Lynch, Ben Brown, Bailey Fritsch, Lance Franklin, Tom Hawkins. Rising Star: Jason Horne-Francis, Nick Dykos, Josh Ward, Josh Rochelle, Logan McDonald. Subscribe to the AFL Record and get it delivered to your house every week. Garry Lyon. Premiers: Western Bulldogs. Runners-up: Melbourne. Wooden Spoon: North Melbourne. Brownlow: Clayton Oliver. Coleman: Tom Hawkins. Rising Star: Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver: St Kilda. Biggest Slider: West Coast. Nathan Buckley. See Nathan Buckley's season predictions here. Tim Watson. Premiers: Brisbane. Runners-up: Richmond. Wooden Spoon: Adelaide. Brownlow: Josh Kelly. Coleman: Lance Franklin. Rising Star: Nick Dykos. Biggest Improver: Carlton. Biggest Slider: Essendon. David King. Premiers: Brisbane. Runners-up: Western Bulldogs. Wooden Spoon: Adelaide. Brownlow: Clayton Oliver. Coleman: Aaron Norton. Rising Star: Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver: Richmond. Biggest Slider: West Coast and Port Adelaide. Dwayne Russell. Premiers: Melbourne. Runners-up: Brisbane. Wooden Spoon: Adelaide. Brownlow: Christian Petracca. Coleman: Jeremy Cameron. Rising Star: Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver: Richmond. Biggest Slider: West Coast. Malcolm Blight. Premiers: Port Adelaide. Runners-up: Melbourne. Wooden Spoon: Collingwood. Brownlow: Marcus Bontempelli. Coleman: Harry McKay. Rising Star: Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver: Richmond. Biggest Slider: GWS. Paul Hasleby. Premiers: Melbourne. Runners-up: Port Adelaide. Wooden Spoon: Adelaide. Brownlow: Clayton Oliver. Coleman: Bailey Fritsch. Rising Star: Josh Rochelle. Biggest Improver: Fremantle. Biggest Slider: West Coast. Andy Mayer. Premiers: Sydney. Runners-up: Melbourne. Wooden Spoon: Adelaide. Brownlow: Tim Taranto. Coleman: Ben Brown. Rising Star: Nick Dykos. Biggest Improver: Carlton. Biggest Slider: West Coast. Andrew Gaze. Premiers: Brisbane. Runners-up: Melbourne. Wooden Spoon: Adelaide. Brownlow: Christian Petracca. Coleman: Aaron Norton. Rising Star: Josh Ward. Biggest Improver: Richmond. Biggest Slider: Port Adelaide. Liam Pickering. Premiers: Geelong. Runners-up: Richmond. Wooden Spoon: Adelaide. Brownlow: Clayton Oliver. Coleman: Jeremy Cameron. Rising Star: Nick Dykos. Biggest Improver: Richmond. Biggest Slider: West Coast. Campbell Brown. Premiers: Brisbane. Runners-up: Melbourne. Wooden Spoon: North Melbourne. Brownlow: Marcus Bontempelli. Coleman: Harry McKay Rising Star, Josh Ward. Biggest Improver, Richmond. Biggest Slider, Sydney. Andrew Hayes. Premiers, Melbourne. Runners-up, Port Adelaide. Wooden Spoon, West Coast. Brownlow, Clayton Oliver. Coleman, Jeremy Cameron. Rising Star, Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver, Collingwood. Biggest Slider, West Coast. Julian De Stoop. Premiers, Brisbane. Runners-up, Melbourne. Wooden Spoon, Adelaide. Brownlow, Josh Kelly. Coleman, Ben Brown. Rising Star, Nick Dykos. Biggest Improver, Richmond. Biggest Slider, Port Adelaide. Scott Cummings. Premiers, Brisbane. Runners-up, Melbourne. Wooden Spoon, West Coast. Brownlow, Clayton Oliver. Coleman, Aaron Norton. Rising Star, Nick Dykos. Biggest Improver, Collingwood. Biggest Slider, West Coast. Tim Gossage. Premiers, Melbourne. Runners-up, Brisbane. Wooden Spoon, Hawthorn. Brownlow, Patrick Cripps. Coleman, Tom Lynch. Rising Star, Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver, Fremantle. Biggest Slider, Geelong. Cam Luke. Premiers, Melbourne. Runners-up, Western Bulldogs. Wooden Spoon, Gold Coast. Brownlow, Marcus Bontempelli. Coleman, Max King. Rising Star, Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver, Carlton. Biggest Slider, Gold Coast. Sam Hargreaves. Premiers, Brisbane. Runners-up, Melbourne. Wooden Spoon, Adelaide. Brownlow, Dustin Martin. Coleman, Jeremy Cameron. Rising Star, Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver, Richmond. Biggest Slider, West Coast. David Wildey. Premiers, Western Bulldogs. Runners-up, Melbourne. Wooden Spoon, North Melbourne. Brownlow, Marcus Bontempelli. Coleman, Tom Lynch. Rising Star, Nick Dykos. Biggest Improver, Richmond. Biggest Slider, West Coast. Kim Dillon. Premiers, Melbourne. Runners-up, Brisbane. Wooden Spoon, Collingwood. Brownlow, Marcus Bontempelli. Coleman, Aaron Norton. Rising Star, Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver, Richmond. Biggest Slider, St Kilda. Michelangelo Rucci. Premiers, Brisbane. Runners-up, Western Bulldogs. Wooden Spoon, Collingwood. Brownlow, Christian Petracca. Coleman, Tom Lynch. Rising Star, Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver, Richmond. Biggest Slider, Sydney. To the SEN YouTube channel for the latest videos. SEN.au team. Andrew Sleverson. Premiers, Western Bulldogs. Runners-up, Geelong. Wooden Spoon, Adelaide. Brownlow, Jack Steele. Coleman, Jeremy Cameron. Rising Star, Nick Dykos. Biggest Improver, Richmond. Biggest Slider, West Coast. NIC Negropontis. Premiers, Geelong. Runners-up, Richmond. Wooden Spoon, Gold Coast. Brownlow, Marcus Bontempelli. Coleman, Max King. Rising Star, Logan McDonald. Biggest Improver, Richmond. Biggest Slider, Port Adelaide. Alex Zaya. Premiers, Western Bulldogs. Runners-up, Brisbane. Wooden Spoon, Adelaide. Brownlow, Marcus Bontempelli. Coleman, Jeremy Cameron. Rising Star, Jason Horne-Francis. Biggest Improver, Richmond. Biggest Slider, West Coast. Lawrence Rosen. Premiers, Brisbane. Runners-up, Melbourne. Wooden Spoon, Hawthorn. Brownlow, Christian Petracca.